Hello guys, and welcome back to our channel. I welcome you to another interesting conversation. It's a crucial conversation that challenges the status quo and reclaims the narrative around one of the most misunderstood and misrepresented terms in modern language: ghetto. Now, for too long, this word has been used to stereotype, stigmatize, and shame Black communities, perpetuating harmful and inaccurate assumptions. But the truth is, the ghetto is not a cultural identity or a personal characteristic. It's a man-made construct, born out of systemic oppression, racism, and intentional disenfranchisement. Now, as we were exploring this video, the origins of the ghetto date back to 16th century Italy, where Jewish communities were forcibly segregated and confined to specific areas. Now, the echoes of this history continue to be seen even today, as Black communities in the United States and beyond have been subjected to redlining, discriminatory housing policies, and other forms of systemic racism that have created and perpetuated modern-day ghettos. So with that said, join me as we take a look into the complex and often untaught history of the ghetto as my fellow Black brothers and sisters share their thoughts and facts on this. I'll be right back.
Yo, family, I came across this again this week, so I felt like I needed to address this. A person, listen closely. A person cannot be ghetto. A ghetto is a place that was created to intentionally impoverish or disenfranchise a certain ethnic group. This has origins in the 1500s with the Jewish community in Italy. And of course, most notably, ghettos existed in Nazi Germany. So I can't for the life of me understand, for one, why Black people are so often referred to as a place, the ghetto, that was not created in Africa. It was created in Europe to disenfranchise other Europeans of a different religion. What you could say is, oh, that Black person was intentionally disenfranchised or redlined, and what I'm seeing now is a forced trauma response or forced resourcefulness.
How the government created the ghetto. In the 1920s, Black people were kind of scattered everywhere. They weren't particularly segregated until after the Great Migration. The response of the government was to try to contain them in their own neighborhoods. So after slavery, African Americans were not allowed to live in white suburban neighborhoods, and they were basically forced to live in urban housing projects, which were older, less maintained properties. To keep Black people further under, they then placed lots and lots of police surveillance in these areas. In return, they were able to criminalize Black people and send them to prison. Not to mention, they gave them unhealthy food options nearby, plants in these areas, and the list goes on. A long list. In 1933, the government started redlining. Basically, they outlined Black areas in red and labeled them as high risk and dangerous. This indicated to the appraisers that it was too risky to give mortgages to these areas. In return, the banks did not give out loans to homes in these areas. And if they did, people of color were given limited options. Instead of a conventional loan, they were given special loans with higher interest or higher fees, which would basically set them up for failure. Then, the Federal Housing Administration began a program to suburbanize all the white neighborhoods. But the catch was, the only way they could get the funding to do this was to commit to never let an African American buy a home. With the government's support, this created the greatest growth of the middle class in the history of the world for white people. By 1940, 42% of white families owned their own home. With this leverage, it allowed middle-class white people to build wealth. They could then use this wealth to send their kids to college, give the wealth to their kids, and in return, the kids could get their own homes. It was a chain effect. What happened at the same time was people of color were discriminated against and prevented from taking the same opportunities. This created a cycle of poverty, which has still been hard to break to this day. Like I said, chain effect. Each time the government got rid of an institutional constraint in this country, they replaced it with another one. First it was slavery, then Jim Crow, then redlining. Decades of housing discrimination has created an unfair financial wealth gap between white and Black families. This is in part why President Biden has issued an executive order to fix the historical wrongs that Black people have faced with housing and home ownership.
Today, I'm directing the Department of Housing and Urban Affairs and Urban Development to redress the historical racism in federal housing policies.
While this is a step in the right direction, there is a lot that still needs to be done.
Close, but the word ghetto actually came from 16th century Italy. So in Venice, Italy, there used to be a requirement for Jewish people to live in a certain area of the city, and they called that area of the city the ghetto. Now, the word was originally spelled Ghetto, and it means foundry. And the reason why it means foundry is because where the ghetto was right next to the town's foundry shop. And that's where they say it originated. Now, some historians are going to debate you on this because some believe that the word ghetto came from the Hebrew tradition, in which meant divorce or separation. And this was still alluding to the Jewish being separated or divorced from their original place of residence. And others will tell you that the word did come from Italy, but it didn't actually mean a foundry. It actually means to be thrown or cast aside, again, referring to the Jewish being required to live in what was considered the ghetto. Either way you look at it, though, the word was described to use a place where Jewish people resided. Now, as time has gone on, we see that the ghetto is usually referred to as a place where people that are impoverished live. And unfortunately, a lot of us have a distaste with the word. But the reality is that the ghetto is beautiful. Right? The ghetto is a place where you can be creative. And I can tell you, as somebody that lives in the suburbs, it is the last place that I was able to express myself fully. And so I'm trying to make my way right on back to that ghetto. So check out those Pop Tarts. Check out Ghetto Gastro. Thank you for asking for the origin of the word.
Do you know what sucks about coming from these poverty-stricken areas? Like the hood, the ghetto? We tend to waste so much time on things because of the lack of resources that we have. I grew up watching people letting dogs fight each other like pit bulls. Like, if we had the right resources and people to teach us, how many veterinarians are coming from these areas? You know what I'm saying? How many dog grooming businesses are we having? You're not afraid of dogs. You could be around these pets. Some people are afraid of them. You have people on Times Square or on our train systems, riding the trains, flipping on bars, one hand. I mean, just pure talent, flipping, running into splits. No one's putting them in gymnastics or nothing. Nobody's telling them anything. It's just like, I just know how to do this. Like a robot. Like a robot. Even about having aggression and being able to fight really good. Like, instead of teaching your friends or the younger people in your neighborhood to just be aggressive, be wild, and drink on top of it, nobody's saying, yo, let me take you to the boxing gym. No, I love how you use your hands. Like, you know, we gonna start the boxing over here. Yo, let's put up some bread. Let's get him in boxing. Nobody is doing that. It's like almost like because of all that's taking place, all the distractions and the lack of resources that we have. That's why all that energy built up. You could barely think straight because you got buildings with 1,000 residents in there. Like, yo, it is really crazy. Like, it's just, oh my God. I just had this moment and I'm just like, yo, it is insane the amount of people walking there with the power, but with the lack of resources. And you just got to always go the extra mile to figure out a lane, what's for you.
So listen, man, in Atlanta, the majority of the population is black. It's about 90% black in Atlanta. But if you ride around and look at all the poverty-stricken areas, it's 100% filled with black people. The wealth is spread out through Buckhead with the 1%. So you ask yourself, how is this city 90% black, but black people don't own anything? Majority of the black people who live in Atlanta are renting apartments, they're renting houses. Even your family who's had a house that's been in their family for a long time, majority of your ancestors are renting. They can't pay their property taxes. Why are black people the only ones in poverty? I'm gonna give you a couple reasons why I think so. I think it's the rap music. Your kids in our communities, it's not even just the kids, it's the older people. Our entire community is being poisoned with rap music. It's being played to us every single day like a spell. We are casting spells on ourselves with the music. We're literally making our children, our elders, and everybody, we're literally practicing everything that's being said in the rap music. It's became our culture. So much that we don't have a culture. Like you look at Mexican people, you know, they have it in their culture. You know, they're going to work. They're going to be, you know what I'm saying, hard-working people. They'll they'll come over here and start from scratch, take their crumbs and all stick together. But you look in the black neighborhoods, we all trying to stun on one another. Everybody balling. Don't nobody own nothing, but everybody's balling. We're the only race of people who will go online and post $10,000 and $15,000 cash. No other race is doing that. Why would they want someone to see their hard-earned money? We're the only ones going by this repeated cycle that we're listening to in this music. The movies that were portrayed to us when we were kids, everything about what they call our culture is negative. We're the only people in this world. If you cut on a radio station right now and cut to a black radio station, you're going to hear about twerking. You're going to hear about people not being, you're going to hear nothing but negativity. You're going to hear nothing but poison that's going to continue to poison our future. So, you know what I'm saying? I feel like we need to just go ahead and flip everything around, man, because like we can't go another 20 or 30 years doing this. If you feel like it's too late, then you're not part of this conversation. But if you're somebody who wants to make a change, you know, start off with stop letting your kids listen to the poison rap music. Because there's no way. I just went on the Shade Room the other day and a dude was bragging about his son going to a 50 Cent concert. And he knew the songs. He's like, what up, blood? What up, cuz? What up, gangsta? How is your 8-year-old son? How does he know this stuff already? Why doesn't he know how to plant? Why doesn't he know how to change a tire? Why doesn't he know how to rake the leaves up in the yard? Why don't he know how to use a lawnmower or a weed eater? Why doesn't he know how to change a light bulb or pump gas? But your sons and your daughters can rap every rap song word for word. So let's stop claiming hip hop and rap as our culture, because that's not our culture. That's what's been sold to us by the Jewish media, by the Jewish record label owners, by the Jewish media company owners. If you turn on a white radio station, they're not going about their day listening to that bull crap. That poison to the ears is not playing inside their ears. They're not hearing music about dudes or about stunting on your man or cheating on your wife. They're not talking about that. If you cut on the Spanish radio stations, they're not talking about that. They're not talking about that. It's only in our communities that they're making this like it's cool, when it's not. It's not cool at all. So from any age range, we're literally poisoned. Only thing we're worried about in our communities is getting money. We're not worried about building up no communities. We're not worried about buying land, starting farms, growing our own food. If you're gonna eat meat, why not go and get you a cow? Why not go and get you a chicken? Y'all got all these styles and all these bands, right? Why not go get you some chickens or some goats or a cow and have your own beef and process your own meats and clean your own meats instead of having to go to the store and buy it from them? The black people from back in the day, they had a lot less than what we have now. They had a lot less than what we have now, a lot less money. But they had more crops, they had more animals, more cattle, they had more land, they had black banks, black hospitals. What do we have now? In the last 30 to 40 years, what have we done to make an impact on history? It just feels like we're a dead society. This generation, these last couple generations of black people, since Martin Luther King died, black people haven't done anything major. And there are some people going to say, well, we had a black president, Obama. What did that do for the black race? But make you feel good because you had a black president. What did it do? Every other race, the nations are coming over here with nothing. And in a couple years, they'll start businesses, buying houses, owning an apartment complex. You go down Buford Highway in Atlanta, the Mexicans and the Asians own everything. It's not one black store on Buford Highway. Period. So let's just stop, man. Let's restructure our culture and our ways of thinking. Let's stop listening to this poisonous called rap music, because it's only being detrimental to us and our kids and our elders. Listen to how these kids are talking these days. I went to Target the other day in Atlantic Station, and all of these kids, man, it's like watching zombies. And it's only our race of kids. We're the main ones out here causing problems. You got the people going to say, well, at least we're not shooting up schools. Okay, that's really bad to have a school shooting. But when you're looking on the news every day, in Atlanta, all the teenagers each other. It's nothing but teenage. So the future that y'all literally just sat here and raised, they're literally wiping themselves out. And y'all as parents are going to keep letting them listen to NBA Youngboy and all these other different rappers that are feeding your children garbage. Garbage. It's crazy, man. We need to stop this. We need to stop it now.
Now, according to research, the word ghetto originated in Venice, Italy in 1516, where it was used to describe them more commonly associated with African Americans in the United States. Now, this word was first used in 1516 in Venice, Italy, to refer to the segregated neighborhood of the city's Jewish inhabitants, who were required by law to reside within a few small blocks. In the 19th century, however, ghetto had become synonymous for Jewish residential areas throughout Europe, although they encompass many different forms of spaces, ranging from courtyards and streets to city quarters up to villages and towns, of which most were not compulsory. During World War II, the word ghetto was appropriated to describe designated sections of Nazi-controlled cities where German authorities concentrated local Jewish populations. Now, historians trace the origin of the so-called Nazi ghetto policy to a meeting on November 12, 1938, when Hermann Göring broached the idea of erecting sealed-off ghettos to completely exclude Jews from German society. At the time, key personnel, most notably Reinhard Heydrich, opposed this idea, believing ghettos would become epicenters for crime and epidemics. About a year later, however, Heydrich and others began calling for the segregation of Warsaw's Jewish population, although the term concentrated cities was initially used to refer to these confined areas instead of the word ghetto. Now, less than a month after the invasion of Poland, Heydrich issued an order on September 21st, 1939, utilized as a space to concentrate Eastern European Jews. Tens of thousands of Western European Jews were also deported to ghettos in the East. Now, historian Roy Hilberg argues that the preliminary steps of ghettoization process consisted of marking Jews' movement restrictions and the creation of Jewish control organs. Indeed, Nazi officials required Jews living in ghettos to wear identifying armbands or badges, and movement was either completely prohibited or strictly regulated. Nazi-appointed Jewish councils or Judenrat provided civil administration and oversaw daily life in the ghettos, while Jewish ghetto police enforced and facilitated orders from German authorities and Jewish councils. Both Jewish councils and Jewish police forces served at the whim of German authorities, and the Germans did not hesitate to unalive those who were perceived to have failed to carry out orders. When it comes to the United States, the existence of poor, largely African American communities in urban areas across the nation, as in Baltimore, Maryland, and Ferguson, Missouri, is not the unintended effect of benign policies, but of explicit, racially purposeful policy that was pursued at all levels of government. Richard Rothstein, a senior fellow at Berkeley Law and a researcher at the Economic Policy Institute, told Fresh Air's Terry Gross in a radio interview, "We are reaping the fruits of those policies." Now, revisiting themes he explored in recent written pieces, Rothstein describes the nuts and bolts of how government, from the Federal Housing Administration to Veterans Affairs and state and local entities, along with real estate agents and banks, fostered housing segregation and helped create a large wealth gap between palm color and Black America. Now, he talks, for instance, about a practice used to panic palm color homeowners into selling after Blacks moved into a largely palm color neighborhood. Speculators would recruit Black people to walk around the neighborhood pushing baby carriages. They would phone families in the palm color area and ask for names that were stereotypically African American to give the impression that this was rapidly turning into another Black slum. The poem is a reminder of systemic racism that has shaped our society. By using the term ghetto to describe Black people, they are not only perpetuating a hateful and inaccurate stereotype, but also erasing the complex and painful history of how these communities came to be. As a brother has already pointed out, ghettos were not created by Black people, but rather were imposed upon them through discriminatory policies and practices. And it's time for people to take responsibility responsibility for language and the harm it can cause. People must stop using the term ghetto as a pejorative to describe Black people and instead acknowledge the historical and systemic forces that have shaped their experiences. We have finally come to the end of the video, but what do our viewers have to say? Share your thoughts, your views in the comment section down below. Thank you for always watching, and see you in our next video as we bring you another interesting video.